Maya, welcome to the Bitcoin Infinity Show. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Interesting. So you guys went from for fuck's sake to Bitcoin Infinity. I love it.
Bank of International Settlements.
Yeah, BIS.
Yeah.
Yeah, great to have you here, Maya. You're from a country that I've visited twice, and it's a very small, very strange country that I absolutely loved. Suriname. So,
Yeah.
yeah, and you're running for the presidency there. So tell us a little about yourself and how you discovered Bitcoin and how you decided to run for president in Suriname.
I mean, it's pretty surprising to hear that someone's visited twice already. To be honest, usually the answer I get is where is that, or where in Africa is that? Like, most people don't even know where the country is, so it's very surprising to hear that you visited twice. Well, okay, to give an introduction on me, yeah, I have a background in business administration. I've had a love for tech and math ever since I was, I don't know, a kid, basically, and a love for innovation. I read Jules Verne. I think I was 6 or 7 years old at the time, and I just love how, in Jules Verne, they were talking about submarines and things that had never could exist, or you couldn't even imagine them at that time. And, now they're so straightforward. They're just these standard things that you have that just exist. Um, and my dad was also very innovative. He would also, have the latest technology always available at the store. He used to own a store, and like we'd have computers. We had the how do you call this in English? It's the stenograph. Morse code. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, we had like everything. TDMA phones. Or like the early days computers. And as a kid, I would actually like pull them apart and put them back together. And you had these it was before floppy disks. You had the bigger drives, the zip, like the actual zip drives that you had to use to play games. So I would do all of that as a kid, and I grew up, with love of technology, and as a pretty nerdy kid, playing games, behind my PC a lot. And as I grew up, I started as an entrepreneur when I was about 15 years old, more out of necessity. And I grew that business. It's an import export company, but it wasn't really like my passion. It was innovating here in this country because you couldn't order anything online. So I was the first company that actually, allowed people to be able to order products online and get it delivered all the way here in Suriname to their homes. And about that, so that was 21 years ago. And about a decade ago, I started second company. We wanted to innovate in the civil engineering space with my partner. He's a civil engineer. So also not really my passion, but I just wanted to, another challenge basically. And I wanted to grow a company to more than 1 million in revenue, which is really hard here in this economy. So we started that about a decade ago. And that gave me the opportunity to invest into, something that I was passionate about and something that I wanted to spend the rest of my life on. And a friend of mine actually told me about Bitcoin in 2012. My friend Ed. So he told me about Bitcoin in 2012, and I, like, shame on me, to be honest, because I just looked at it. I read the white paper. I thought it was amazing. And I thought, this is going to be life changing, or it could potentially change the world. Like, specifically after the 2008 crisis, I was one of those people that was anticipating that crisis and kind of, knew that it was going to happen. And then you see the whole banking crisis like unfold in front of your eyes, and you feel that, that sense of like the system is broken, and this seemed like the solution. But I thought to myself, like, okay, it's still early. What if a government stops it? What if, I still had this idea of, okay, it needs to grow. So I just kept an eye on it a little bit. Kept following it in the media, just kept keeping like kind of tabs on it. And then I think it was 2014, I joined Whirlpool and Telegram, which was a Bitcoin only toxic maximalist group, where everybody was just like talking about Bitcoin all the time. And I just kind of got more and more obsessed with it. It's like once you keep learning more, and once you understand, what it actually can mean for the world, then you just kind of can't can't let go. And then I went to, I think Consensus was the only conference at the time. So I went to Consensus in 2017, I think was the first time. And I met with the admins of Whirlpool, actually. And we went to dinner, and I was like explaining to them, we need to have Bitcoin adoption in Suriname, and we need to convert the country, and it's a perfect place for it because we only have 600,000 people. We have no financial infrastructure, a lack of very big gap in technology here. So it's the perfect breeding ground. It's like the perfect place to build that new system on Bitcoin.
And let me guess. The reply was, "What the hell is a Suriname?"
Yeah, well, pretty much, yeah. They were pretty supportive, but I think it was hard to fathom, what adoption at that level could actually mean. So they told me not to give up. I think one of them even asked me, they were building, I think it was one of the exchanges, actually, one of the derivative exchanges, Deribit, I think, asked me to be CEO of Deribit, but I don't really like derivatives. And I just kept like kind of pursuing that, building a capital market and building that new system, with Bitcoin being basically the tool that allows companies to raise capital from anyone in the world, being able to hedge, inflation here with the SRD, we have 50 to 60% inflation, being able to hedge inflation using Bitcoin. And you just wanted to Trojan horse it into the economy in some kind of way. And then in 2020, we had the exchange live. 2020 in January, we were about to issue the first bond. The Staatsolie, it's a national oil refinery here, and they had a bond issuance of about 190 million. And we were like preparing for that issuance, preparing the licensing process at the central bank. And the governor was very supportive, to let us innovate completely free, like hands off. He was really, he had a very progressive approach to just letting us do, what we thought would be best here. And then he got locked up in a political trial. So that kind of put a wrench in things. And then in 2021, I mean, we were still working with the new Minister of Finance and things were ongoing, but it was going really, like bureaucrats very slowly. In 2021, I saw Bukele, making Bitcoin legal tender in El Salvador. And I thought, holy shit, this is what I've been dreaming of. So I flew to El Salvador for adopting Bitcoin, and started lobbying there. And I guess that's where I met Kamal, I met Daniel Wingen. And I started talking to Daniel and also asking him, like, how do I get this here? Right. And then he introduced me to GG's 21.world. And I just started with that. I started with trying to develop the circular economy here, just like as a passion side project while I focus on trying to innovate still in this space, which is how, Daedelus Labs actually got how we started with Daedelus Labs in May last year.
Yeah, let me just briefly tell you my stories with Suriname. I've been there twice, as I said, and I was working on a toll ship at the time as an officer on like this big sailing boat that had high school students on board, and we went to all these obscure places, Paramaribo being one of them. And before arriving in Paramaribo, I looked up we had a little Lonely Planet guide printed in the 90s, and it's under Suriname, it just said, "Don't go here. It's dangerous, stay out." So yeah, but we went anyway, and I found Paramaribo to be beautiful. Like it's a very cool city or town. Like it's not even a city, right? And I went on long walks in Paramaribo and saw these houses villas on stilts almost, and like very cool architecture in some of the more obscure parts of town. And something struck me, like all the little supermarkets had metal bars in front of so it's because they got robbed all the time earlier on, I guess. Like it seemed pretty safe at the time, but there were still these measures, and everywhere you could buy a little I'm gonna fuck off and go live in the jungle kit, like with a Primus kitchen and a tent and a machete and whatnot. And we heard some stuff from I think some contact down there that in order to get all the different religious groups to not fight anymore, you needed to have yeah, you have to correct me if I'm wrong here, but Suriname had 8 state religions or something. So you had to have a holiday for each and every single religion. So you were like not working like half of the year because everything was a holiday. Is that true?
Well, it's not half of the year, but we do have a lot of holidays.
You have like 150 days or something.
No, it's not that much. But it is a lot. Don't hold me to it, but I think it's around like 30 to 50 max. I think it varies every year. Like we had a Japanese New Year last Monday, and I have Japanese friends, and I asked them like, "What is Japanese New Year?" Like they don't even know. They don't even know what Japanese New Year. But apparently it's a holiday. So yes, we do have a lot of holidays. There's so it's a melting pot of cultures. It's not really as dangerous. In the city, for example, it's a UNESCO heritage site. So you have a lot of old colonial buildings. And in the heart of the city, I do think that it is like a bit more dangerous for specifically for a supermarket, right? Because they know that criminals do know that there's a lot of cash there, so they do tend to put up bars. But if you're like outside of the direct city, then it's pretty fine, to be honest. You don't have they don't have bars at the entrance. You can just walk in freely, and it's modernized a lot as well. So it's not like the West. It's still like a little town, but yeah, it's fair day. In the Caribbean, I think it's one of the most safest places where you can visit. And yeah, in terms of that cultural melting pot, so we have Chinese, we have Japanese, we have Indians like myself, you have Brazilians, we have Venezuelans, we have Cubans, we have big Javanese population, you have Creole, you have Maroons, you have Indigenous, and that's just to name a few. We have Lebanese as well, so we have Lebanese community, we have a Jewish community. So we're a real cultural melting pot, and everybody celebrates each other's holidays, and everybody cooks each other's dishes. Oh, we also have a Dutch population. So, like for example, my mom is right now cooking sauerkraut. So, we eat each other's food, we celebrate each other's holidays. You have a synagogue next to a mosque, so you don't have a lot of like discrimination where people, are actually really violent towards each other, like you have in other countries in the region. Luckily,
no, it's super cool. And the other thing we did in Suriname was that there was like an excursion out in the jungle where we did some canoeing and some jungle safari thing, visiting a very, what's the word for that? A nature tribe of some kind, where
You have Maroon tribes and you have Native Indians, so the indigenous population of Suriname.
No, it was really cool. There's one of those old yellow American school buses from the 70s. And at some point we had to have all the students jump, or all the male students jump out of the bus and push it up the mud on the road because it was stuck. And there was no phone connection or anything like that. And if I recall correctly, there was a dam somewhere in the country that they have decided to build, and there's a church tower sticking in the middle of the dam, sticking out of it, because there was a little village that they just didn't give a shit about and just flooded the entire valley to build a hydroelectric dam.
They did relocate the villages. Some of them have stayed, but I think this was it was the Suriname Aluminium Company. So actually Alcoa, so the largest aluminum company in the world, and I think we supplied most of the aluminum for the Second World War as well. So it's that's why that dam was developed. It's been decommissioned for a while. So not the dam, but I mean the aluminum refinery. So now the energy is used by just the locals. So it goes to the city. And they flooded a piece of the country. It's not very large percentage wise, but it did. You do have like some mountain tops that are still sticking out, where you have new villages that have come up that moved there, and you do have some remnants of what used to be there still. But it is beautiful. It's a 93% forested. So the largest percentage of the country is Amazon rainforest. And as you said, like cell phone coverage has improved a little bit when you head into the interior. But you still do have to, like, depending on how far you go, if you're going up river rapids, for example, you do still need to like get out of the canoe, get all of your baggage out, and then we push the canoe, like upstream through the rapids. Or sometimes, if you're really deep, sometimes they have to carry it and then put it back in the water, and then you reload all of your stuff.
That's the way we did it, and it's a great memory. I mean, it was beautiful and it felt very adventurous. That was really cool, and we heard like the history of the country is like the slaves that managed to escape. They just ran into the jungle, right? And then the slave owners, who were Europeans, didn't know how to handle jungle, so they couldn't really catch them, and they started these little villages, and there's what they call anthropologists are studying all these tribes because they're even more based than the ones in Africa, because that's what we were told anyway. But great
Sure,
memories.
They still have kept a lot of their culture alive, and they're very remote. We've actually been working with Amazon conservation team for, it's been almost a year, or a bit longer than a year now, to actually incorporate Bitcoin into their lives to solve a lot of the problems that they have, because they're that remote. They don't really have a use for the Surinamese dollar. It's very, like, they need about 3 months of salary to be able to travel to the city to use the SRD. So, inherently that makes it difficult for them to use the local currency. They live off of the land, so they live off of like hunting and fishing, and they produce some things like there's stingless honeybees, so they produce honey. They produce some type of pepper, or they cultivate things, or they make jewelry, for example. So things like that are their only source of income. But it's also costly for them to, need to travel to the city to be able to use their money. So Bitcoin solves that problem, but it also solves the problem like of sustainability, because most of them are actually almost all of them are too remote to be connected to the grid. So they don't have grid energy. The only thing that they can actually use is solar. And there's nothing that can make solar sustainable for them to actually maintain and keep that solar system. So if you add mining to it, you create a source of income that is, purely from energy, and is just basically the basis of their little circular, what we, like to call their little circular economy. So we've been working with Amazon conservation team very closely over the past year to get them all, to adopt Bitcoin, to be honest. And it's taken a year, but we're getting a lot more traction right now. So it's very exciting to finally see some traction and see Bitcoin companies willing to help to get projects like that off the ground, because I feel like, they're so remote, they're so traditional and they're so not, they're so against being dependent on government. They want their independence. They want their self-sovereignty. So I see this as a real opportunity to just directly have energy convert into Bitcoin and that be their main source of income, and, basically give them sovereignty, have them be able to be self-sustainable and, just completely independent. And like, I think as far as circular economies go, or like the whole idea of Bitcoin adoption, I think this is like the most, like the purest form you can have it, right? Because it's not just them buying Bitcoin. It's like literally they have a source of energy that they need, and that source of energy also converts into this, purest form of money that they can use. That's one of my like passion side projects that I'm really happy that it's finally getting more traction.
Hey, look! Why did the chicken brush his teeth?
Why, Knut?
Do chickens even have teeth? To get to the Bitbox on the other side of the road.
What a fantastic idea. The Bitbox is our favorite hardware wallet for a lot of reasons. It's easy to use, apparently also for chickens. Bitbox cares about your security and your privacy. They take measures to make sure they're not collecting more information about you than they need to. And they also have fantastic customer support. They get rave reviews. So if you have any issues with your Bitbox or you don't know how to use it for some reason, then they can help you out and take care of you.
So go to bitbox.swiss/freedom or use code FREEDOM for 5% off your Bitbox right now. Hey, Luke, what's the difference between a chickpea and a Bitcoin advisor?
What, Knut?
I never had a Bitcoin advisor on my face. But you could have one in your face, because we're Bitcoin advisors.
That's right, Knut. We're working with the Bitcoin Advisor, and we're all about securing your Bitcoin for the long term. The Bitcoin Advisor has a collaborative multi-sig solution so that you can secure your Bitcoin for the next 20 years and beyond. Even if you lose one of your keys or something happens where it's an inheritance situation, they've got you covered, and we can help you get there. So go to thebitcoinadvisor.com for more information, or you can reach out to us and book a call so that we can explain everything to you ourselves. Doesn't that sound awesome?
Sounds absolutely spectacular. It's basically boating accident insurance, isn't it?
Exactly. Although, boating accidents, well,
you could have boating accidents anyway. Like, I mean, whatever.
Go to thebitcoinadvisor.com today.
Do the things. So tell us about this, the political campaign and when did you decide to run for president, and what are your chances? Like, where is this going?
Yeah. So, okay. Like, I've never been politically active in the country, but I have been a political activist. So I have been very vocal against government, very vocal against, corruption, very vocal against, some of the corruption happening at our financial institutions. I was very vocal about open market operations. Like our central bank started doing it a few years ago. And I was actually one of the people that, worked out how open market operations worked. And the whole point of it was to get interest rates down because they're like at 19%, between 12 and 19% interest rates here. And the whole point was to get, to get those lowered and create liquidity in the market initially with that. And they took that and raped it and made it 89% and 90% interest rates on a short-term deposit. So they've injected over 221 million already into the economy in just the last few years. And I've been very vocal about that. I've been very vocal about corruption in the country and very vocal about government corruption. And it was actually at, I think it was Bitcoin Miami last year where I met Samson and his team from Jan 3. And, Samson being an advisor on the sovereign bonds in El Salvador, and also being part of that adoption happening in El Salvador, it being legal tender. I asked Edwin actually at Jan 3, like, how do we get this done in Suriname? Similar to me still lobbying for the same thing everywhere. And Edwin said, you need to get Samson on a flight to Suriname, or you need to convince him to come to Suriname. So that became one of my goals, to convince him to come here and get him in front of the right people here. We started talking and then working together, I think, starting Bitcoin Miami last year. And we had several meetings with the Minister of Foreign Affairs. And then eventually I arranged also a meeting with him and the president November of last year. And that took a couple of months of, lobbying to get, get him in front of the president specifically about this. And he was here. He talked to the central bank. He had a meeting with the Minister of Finance before. He had a meeting with the Minister of Foreign Affairs. He had meetings here with a lot of financial institutions and their CEOs, the Banking Commission, their vice chairman. And it was actually while Samson was here that he said it in a couple of like dinner meetings that we had. He's like, you should just run. You know everything. You understand. You understand how it works. You understand, the bonds, the sovereign bonds, the dynamics of the economy and what Bitcoin can actually mean and how you can leverage, Bitcoin and implement it actually in this country and just change the economy. So you should just run. And then he did that a couple of times, and we actually talked about it more broadly in one dinner meeting. And I thought that they were going to make Bitcoin legal tender because the president was very, very, very positive during that meeting with Samson. He said, yes, I'm going to be a global leader in innovation. We're going to be the Bitcoin leader in the world. And, it's similar to El Salvador. We're going to change this economy. And he wants to be a global voice in tech and in innovation, and Bitcoin's going to lead the way. So during that meeting, he was very positive. And afterward, they were also, following up and being very positive, and they're, installing a specific commission to oversee it. And one of his advisors was going to review it. And then I think it was January or February this year, one of his, that specific advisor had a conversation with me because we had worked together previously in eGov. And he was talking to me about this. And then he mentioned that he was mining Bitcoin and that he was already mining a couple of megawatts, and he was scaling it up to a 10 megawatt facility, or he already had 10 megawatt available and he was scaling it up, wanted to head to 20 megawatts. And he wanted to keep it silent. Like, he didn't want people to talk about Bitcoin and, making Bitcoin legal tender that would attract too much attention to what he was doing. So that's when I immediately saw this, it's the same fucking corruption again. And, look at the opportunity that we have and look how close we are. And, we've been working towards this point for a year, and we worked so hard. We got Samson all the way here, and we can literally, they had the proposal at the central bank. They know the impact that it can have on our country. They know what they can do. And they're being bureaucratic about it and putting it on the back burner and keeping it silent because of this man's personal interest in this mining facility. So that's where just my political activism and like my hatred for corruption just kind of kept brewing. And then I kept thinking about what Samson said, and I just kept weighing the pros and the cons, because you do lose your privacy. You do have a sense of danger and threat in terms of security, because it's still, our vice president is on the Interpol list. Our former president was a dictator who led a revolution, right? So it is a dangerous environment, and we do have, like, there is exports that other political activists. I spoke to other political leaders, and after all of those conversations, after a couple of months, also, just kind of like dealing with the fact that I'd be losing my privacy, that I'd be losing my sense of safety, security, that I'd be going against my mother's wishes and my family's wishes, actually, and pursuing this. And, speaking to who are now my team, people that are influential here, that have integrity, that have a reputation and credibility here, and political leaders in the country, that I actually decided to take it on. Our population is very tired of old politics, of corruption, because there's been systemic corruption ever since independence, since 1975. It's one government after the other, looting and stealing from the people, taking our central bank reserves, and just basically doing big projects. And then of those big projects, just a percentage goes into the actual project. The rest goes into someone's pocket. There's just systemic corruption at all our state-owned companies. It's just widespread, right? And it's one scandal after the other. We had hope for this government, but it's just been corruption scandal after corruption scandal after corruption scandal. So everybody's tired. And it's like everybody's living in survival mode, and people have lost hope, and they've lost hope in our older politicians as well. And we wanted to have change, and it seems that other political parties and leaders, some of the smaller ones, they were very supportive of me running, and the question was, am I going to start a new party? Am I going to start my own new party? And that was our initial idea and an initial approach. We started, the incorporation with our local notary to incorporate the National Liberal Party, or Libertarian Party. And well, as we went further along, I've also been approached by the National Democratic Party, which is one of the largest parties in the country, to join them. But there is another small party that was actually created after the last elections, called 597 Network, or Netwerken in Dutch, and Networks in English. And this is not a specific political ideology, right? It's almost like Bitcoin. It's about nodes. It's about a network. It's about people, individuals, and it's decentralized, and it's very much about this decentralized form of governance. It's not about a specific person. So I'm aligning with this party. We have our party elections on the 25th. I'll be put forward as the candidate to lead the party. So that is the path that we're on right now as a team. And basically, you have the existing party called the VHP, the current government, the current president's party, which is one of the larger parties at the moment. And then you have the NDP, which is the other large party of our former president. But our former president was convicted, sentenced to 20 years. So he's in hiding right now. So he's not leading the party. So the party is actually having elections as well to select a new leader. There's some infighting in that political party. So I'm not really sure if it makes sense for me to join. And also because of, the history of both, of actually all of the larger political parties, is a lot of systemic corruption. Like none of them, have a track record of, leaving this country without, their own political agenda and without a track record of corruption. About 40% of voters are under 35. So we have a very young voting population that will be voting in these new elections. Our constitution has been changed as well, or part of our voting laws have changed. It used to be a system where, like, for example, you have Koroni, where you have about 1,300 people living, and those 1,300 votes would weigh as much as, more than 10,000 votes in the city. So you had this weighted system where you could go to these villages or these districts and, convince that small amount of people to vote for your political party, and that would get you a significant amount of seats. And at the end, you'd have enough seats in parliament, to have enough voting rights to be able to elect a president. So that changed. It's now one man, one vote. So this will be the first elections in our country where you have this one man, one vote system. Sorry, my cat in the background. So you have these elections where you have this one man, one vote system for the first time, where things will be more fair. And now that you have, just our population just being very tired of corruption, and none of the other political parties actually have a clear plan on how to develop our country, right? They've taken bits and pieces of what I've spoken about. They're taking some ideas, but you don't have the skills, the knowledge, the capacity within those political parties to actually, lay out an actual plan, like with the structure for the sovereign bonds, with Bitcoin, and how you actually use Bitcoin, how you attract foreign direct investment, how we're going to tackle a lot of the economic issues that we're facing in this country. We're on the verge of being blacklisted. 3 of our banks are being prosecuted by Dutch government. Recently came out. So how do you deal with those challenges? How do we get rid of the IMF, right? Because we don't want to be in an IMF program. And the amount, to be honest, like it's the amount of that program, and the amount of our bonds at Oppenheimer, for example, those are insignificant amounts in comparison to our national resources and what we get from our national resources. So none of the other political parties have a clear strategy or actually know how, or a vision how to develop this country. So I guess that's where I stand out, and which is why I'm getting as much support as I am. Campaigning has actually just started, and it started after I announced that I was going into politics. So the podcast came out. I announced that I was going into politics. And then the 2 other the larger political parties started being more active. I was approached by all of the smaller parties to join them. But altogether, all the small parties only get about 7,000 votes, which is enough for 1 seat. So we're going for the win. We're going up against the larger political parties unless we form a collaboration with one of them. And then, the requirement would be that it would be a group of younger people between 30 to 35 or between 30 and 40 that have a track record of integrity, that have the knowledge and the skills and the capability to be able to actually lead this country into change and, be able to execute our program, because we have laid out a plan that can immediately change this country starting 2025, not, 4 or 5 years, not promising something, but actually doing it starting 2025. So it would have to be a team of integrity, and they'd have to be willing to let this team, change this country, because it would be systemic change. I believe in, less government involvement. I do believe that everything that government touches tends to ruin the natural dynamics of a free and open market, right? It tends to have the opposite effect of what a government usually intends to achieve for its people. So we want to privatize as much as we can. We want to decentralize as much as we can. So, for example, education doesn't have to be a government-led ministry. The ministry doesn't even have to exist. It can be completely privatized with the right foundation and guidelines, right? And doesn't need to be completely managed by government. Healthcare. Our healthcare system is completely in shambles right now. That doesn't need to be a government thing. All of the state-owned companies don't have to be owned by government. There's a lot of systemic corruption at our energy company, ABS. That doesn't have to be government-owned. SWM, our water company, that doesn't have to be government-owned. Our national air carrier is $140 million in debt, thanks to government. That does not have to be government-owned. So remove as much of the power and overreach that has been systemically created throughout the world, actually, where government has crept into our lives in all and every aspect, right? You need to ask government for permission for almost everything. But if you look at, for example, Switzerland, the Swiss cantonal model, you have a federal government, but the cantons still decide. So similarly, in Suriname, we have districts. You can actually bring a lot of the decision making back to the people, back to this district level, where if a road needs to be built, for example, they can actually themselves vote whether they need that road or not, or what is the highest priority, and just bring the decision making and the budget back to that regional level. And using Bitcoin as our national currency, because I not like Bukele made it legal tender, but they still have the US dollar as a de facto currency, right? If we replace the Surinamese dollar with Bitcoin, people just earning in Satoshis, people just earning sats and earning in Bitcoin, companies maintaining their treasuries in Bitcoin, we are an import economy. We import more than we export. Right? And the things that we export are natural resources. We don't produce a lot because our population is much too small. So if you change the way people earn and the way that companies run their treasury, every company in this country will be a mini micro strategy, right? And in comparison to the fiat value of everything they import, the resources that the grondstof, the resources that they need to import to manufacture something, for example, the companies that produce locally, their costs will be going down in comparison to everything they need to import. Everybody that earns a salary, now what they do is they have SRD, and then they immediately convert their SRD to US dollar or euro, and then they save in US dollar or euro, or they buy gold, right? And they save in that. So instead of them having to exchange it to some other fiat, one Bitcoin is one Bitcoin, and they'll always be increasing in value in relation to that fiat currency. So I think we can be the first nation in the world where this can actually be successfully rolled out, and it's been done by previous governments before. They've scrapped 3 zeros. They've changed from the Surinamese guilder to the Surinamese dollar. They have done this before. And with the resources that we have and the dynamics of our economy as it is, we can actually do this. And just imagine going to the store and, the price of a product staying the same in sats, and the cost for the importer just increasingly going down, right? In comparison to the fiat value of an external forces. And then I have a specific look at energy as well, like energy creation. We have a hydro dam that creates between It's actually very low at the moment, but it can create, max capacity of 180 megawatt. But we use almost twice that. And the rest is fossil fuel generated. So we can actually be incentivized to create more sources of renewables to be able to mine Bitcoin, to generate more for our own sovereign wealth fund, right? From the income we receive from our natural resources, have the country completely go on to renewables. I'm a big fan of nuclear. And I think if we properly use energy and convert energy directly into Bitcoin, because right now all miners are still focusing on a fiat price for energy, right? They're not power producers. I'm not aware of many that are power producers. So if you're also the power producer and you're converting energy directly into Bitcoin and your entire economy is based on Bitcoin, that is, I think, that was what what was made for, right? This is what Satoshi developed this for, is an economy completely based on hard, sound money and on math, not on something created by people. It's just pure energy. So that is what we can achieve here, and we can actually achieve it next year.
Okay, so bunch of questions there. Like, first of all, what's your stance on legal tender laws in general? Like, are you pushing for any legal tender laws, or can people just use whatever they want? Or how is the Bitcoin push going to happen?
So right now, the proposal we actually have at the central bank that is making Bitcoin legal tender, and as our laws are currently, it would only mean for them to so what they would need to do is the Foreign Exchange Commission, which is a commission within just led by government, is also the head is also placed by government. They would only need to issue one decree, so that can be done in a day, and then Bitcoin would be legal tender, similar to US dollar and euro. What I'm pushing for is for us to adopt Bitcoin as a de facto currency, so to scrap the SRD, which our central bank doesn't function as a traditional central bank anyway. All it does is just take our national resources, either give it to government or funnel it back into the economy, and it all goes to shit, or it all goes to someone's bank account in Switzerland eventually anyway. So there is no reason for us to have a Surinamese dollar. Right? There is no reason whatsoever for us to have a Surinamese dollar. If we transition to just Bitcoin being the unit of account, just Bitcoin being our currency, just like the entire economy running on hard decentralized money, why would we need a local currency still?
Yeah, no, totally agree. And so the election is in 2025. Is that correct?
Yes.
And how are you doing in the polls? Like, what are your chances? What?
So we don't really have official polls similar to like in the US, where you have, or in Western economies where you have, like percentages, and you see how each candidate is actually. We have a similar system so you need to form a coalition, and you need a majority seats in parliament to be able to elect a president. Depending on how many votes you get as your political party, that determines how many seats you get. With the new laws, you need about 7,000 votes for one seat. And you need 26 seats to elect a president. So we need, that amount of votes, or the majority of votes, to have a significant say in who becomes the president. So we're already in July, so over the next 9 months, 8 to 9 months, now everybody's starting campaigning. The political parties are starting campaigning. And the majority of votes do seem to shift during each election, depending on how the population feels about, a political party. Like, they voted against NDP, but the NDP still got 60,000 votes in the last elections. And the FIAP got about, I believe it was around 100,000 votes. But now with the new voting system, the weight of votes is different, right? So now in Paramaribo, the votes actually weigh more. So you can get more seats with the votes in Paramaribo and with a younger population voting. So with the one man, one vote, my odds are better. I have a clean track record and I actually have a plan. And it all depends, to be honest, on fundraising. And what I've heard right now is that the other political parties are not raising as much capital as they had for previous elections. So they have about, I heard, 300 to 400K, right, in budget for their campaign. And you have one, like, the only, like, real challenge is some of these political parties, they have their own gold concessions and they have, drug related ties or sponsors. So they do have, I think one party has about 3 million in funds to campaign. So it's all about media exposure. It's all about getting the message out there properly. So we're preparing in the same way. We're preparing, with same political leaders, with the same trying to collaborate as well as much as we can with the right people. But it's all about getting the word out there over the next couple of months. But right now, I've been in the media. And 98% of the comments and the views, for example, one of the interviews got more than 50,000 views and comments were positive. The majority of comments are positive. They say that I give people hope, something that other parties don't really give them yet because of their track record, or other leaders don't give them. It is that sense of hope for a better future, for a different future, that things can actually be different. Because, something that Bitcoin also allows is transparency, right? Everybody in the world will be able to see where our government spending goes and how it's spent. The entire country will be able to live audit how money is being spent. So you can, there's less chance of corruption. So I think, as far as raising campaign funding, I think we're doing well. I think I'm on the right track. I think that's that's our biggest hurdle, raising campaign funding to actually successfully do our campaign. And also security, make sure that I don't get killed in the process. I think those are our two biggest hurdles.
Oh, that sounds scary. But so if you're a random Bitcoin whale and a fan of the Bitcoin Infinity show, as Bitcoin whales with integrity are, and you want to help Suriname and Maya go forward with this, like, is there a way to donate to the campaign, or do you have a geyser fund or something like that, or you're raising Bitcoin money in some way from around the globe?
Yeah, we accept Bitcoin for the campaign, and we're also, even with the campaign, we're doing it differently. We also want the campaign funding to be completely transparent and traceable. So, even our spending heading towards the election, it's more focused on social impact, more focused on projects, more focused on actually changing things for people heading into the elections. It's not, not going to be what they're doing right now. They're doing parties and having shows, and that's basically what they're doing. We want to actually implement change, and Bitcoin adoption is also a very significant part, because that's changing people's lives, and it's also already visibly changing people's lives here. So we have a geyser fund for Bitcoin Suriname. I'd say if you're a whale, you can also support via just supporting the circular economy here, supporting Bitcoin adoption here. And if you want to directly support the campaign, and I'm also, this is something that has never been done globally, right? So if you're willing to support, willing to help, reach out. We want to be as transparent as possible, or completely transparent actually, about how funds are going to be spent and how how they can be tracked, and everything should be, easily viewable online. So if you're a Bitcoin whale watching this show and you want to support the cause and help get us there, it's about 46 Bitcoin that we need to give us like an actual shot of winning this. And any other help is also welcome. So just feel free to reach out on Telegram or on Twitter.
Fantastic. Well, and I think on this political side, we absolutely wish you the best of luck. And I mean, as far as ways that individuals can get involved, I mean, the on the ground side in Suriname, are you seeing people pick up on this as well? Is there any traction coming with Bitcoin on the ground?
Yeah, actually, so it took a while. It was actually very, very slow, especially in the start. And I think it was 21 World, like the Island Swans community, like Gigi's community was very, supportive of just keep at it, just keep going. Because early on, it was only 2 people that showed up to the meetups. Now it's, 30 people at the minimum, 100 people that come to our monthly meetups. You have the Nova Stars Academy, it's a soccer academy that has about 800 kids and 800 families that just launched the Federation, and that are getting a lot more support right now and working together with, Bitcoin Beach and getting a lot of support and advice and help from them as well. So things are really starting to pick off right now. Trezor Academy, so that we're just starting with Trezor here, with education. We just got approved as a Mi Primer Bitcoin node. So we're also starting the Mi Primer Bitcoin Diploma program here. That will also go to those 800 families. And with the sponsorships that he's recently received, also in Bitcoin, he's paying his trainers in Bitcoin, and he's scaling that from 800 families to more regions in the country and to more people, to more kids. So that's a great project, and that's a great project to support as well. So we're actually getting a lot more traction. With the Suriname circular economy, we have the Bitcoinized POSs here, and the clubs and bars actually want to use those POSs to replace, because right now it's very hard for them to do payments during events. They use coins, and they want to replace the coins with just NFC cards, so people can just use a Blink wallet, use an NFC card, pay at the Bitcoinized POSs. So we're going to start rolling those out over the next couple of months as well. So there's the solar projects at the villages, right? That's also life changing for those villages. So the solar projects, those could use some help as well. Those are getting traction too. So if you're in solar, or if you're in mining, we can use some help there as well. So as much and more Bitcoiners are moving here. There's one that already moved, one that already lives here, and there's 2 or 3 families that have reached out that actually want to move in the next couple of months. So more and more Bitcoiners are also coming. So everybody move here.
Yeah, and okay. So what is life like for an expat, I guess, in Suriname? Like, what's the draw for Bitcoiners?
Well, I think a lot of the and this is not just expats. This is also people that go to the Netherlands, and even me going into Europe or the US and then coming back here. You have more freedom here. Like you're not a number in a machine. You're actually a person here. You're not everything is over-regulated. You don't have scanners and cameras everywhere. Not everything is digitized and automated. And, not your whole life is not run for you. You actually get to choose your life. And because it's 93% forested, you can buy a property for like 15K or 30K in the middle of nowhere, build your house, and just live in complete, peace and quiet. And there's not as much government overreach as you have right now happening in Europe. I was speaking to a family actually that wants to move here because of, the amount of control that is being exerted in Western economies right now, especially with CBDCs coming up. We have great food. We have a lot of nature. Life is peaceful. It's not rush, 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 work, 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 and work to survive. If you work remote, or if you're working in the oil industry, for example, or if you have a company that you want to run from here, there's a lot of opportunity because there's so much that hasn't been developed yet. Like there's such a big gap in development that there's a lot of opportunity as well. So life is actually pretty peaceful.
How does someone get residency? Is it open visa program or what is it? How does someone?
So you have you can stay here for 90 days with a regular tourist visa, but you can request a longer term visa, and that's just the process here. You can check online. I think I posted the link once, but I can reshare if necessary. And basically, you can just request a longer stay, and I think it's a 2 or 3 year visa that you can get to just work and live here. You don't have to invest 100,000 or any of those requirements to be able to get a longer term visa or longer term stay here.
No, that's nice. I mean, we're big advocates of at least exploring second passport options and or residency options and things like that. So interesting one. I think we'll have to see about getting our way to Suriname at some point. And you were mentioning there's a conference coming up here fairly soon before we started.
Yeah, November 7 to 9. We have the first day is Nostr Day, the second day is Bitcoin Day, and then the third day we have a Nostr Beach Festival because we do believe it's a nice way to have freedom on communications, and also an easy way to start using Bitcoin as well. We like how you can just zap, right? And it's a playful way to get introduced to Bitcoin as well. So that's 7 to 9 November. We have partial conference and partial side events where people will be actually interacting and using Bitcoin. So it's more of a practical approach to teaching the locals how they can actually use Bitcoin and how it benefits them.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, the local conferences, I mean, they don't get as much press or as much international visitation, but they're just as important as the big conferences that you get tons of Bitcoiners to, right? But you do want people to come from abroad if possible,
definitely. Right? We're hoping to get at least 300 to 500 Bitcoiners here. So start packing your bags and booking a ticket if you can, and come support us here and then help, because as it also, you'll have the possibility to pay with Bitcoin at all the restaurants surrounding the conference, at all the side events. So you'll be able to actually use Bitcoin and inject it into our circular economy here and have people actually benefit directly, and see the benefits directly from Bitcoin. So yeah, start booking your tickets.
Awesome. And I think one other thing you mentioned there is the other piece that I think we wanted to touch on with you was you mentioned Nostr, and can you explain what you do with Daedelus Labs? So we know there's a bit of Nostr there, a bit of a Bitcoin development stuff there. What goes on at Daedelus Labs? We've also got our friend Ralphie, who we know is involved in that. So shout out Ralphie,
our band member.
Yeah,
for our other bands.
Lugano's our next gig, so see you there, Ralphie. But please tell us all about that.
Yeah, so I think I got into Nostr pretty early on. There weren't much people on there. It wasn't much activity happening on it. It took a couple of months for it to get some traction. That was I think last year after Nostrika is when more people started hopping on. And I think I joined Nostr because something Jack posted. I think Jack posted on Twitter that, you should check out Nostr. And that's when I joined Nostr. And actually, that was one of the first conversations I had on Nostr was about, I think I asked him if he smoked weed. But But that's basically where I think the whole Bitcoin community, or most of the developers in the Bitcoin community, and everyone was joining. And we incorporated Daedelus Labs in 2023 in May. And it was actually the continuation of, me wanting to innovate in the Bitcoin space, wanting to be in it full time and just dedicate my skills, being capital market skills and tech, finance, and the intersection of financial structures and all of that, and trying to build also part of this new world, this new system, right? And that's how Daedelus Labs got started. And we started focusing, like I took a couple of steps back, focused on we as humans, what are our basic needs, right? And one of our basic needs is a roof over our heads. And one of the things that ties all of us still to banks is a mortgage or house, right? Because not everyone has a significant amount of money or capital ready to be able to just cash out and buy their house and be rid of the bank and live completely on a Bitcoin standard, right? So,
no, and houses are expensive because money doesn't work.
Exactly. Like we've been outpriced, right? These things have been overinflated. So I started looking at like traditional real estate investment trusts like Blackstone, and those are also structured and to like have this incentive model to make real estate super expensive and owned by just by the REIT itself, and have most of the profits of these properties flow back to a small amount of people, like the top 1%, right? And you look at these capital market structures, you look at the traditional exchanges, you look at how those companies are structured, like, and where the profits flow and where the profits of the big banks flow and how money flows, and it's all structured to flow back to the top 1%. And then how do you change and completely rethink that model and create something that actually works for people, how it works for everyone, and that the returns also flow back to people. And if you add Bitcoin as a component of your portfolio in a REIT, actually, you completely change the dynamics of a REIT, and you can actually finance property differently. You can own property differently. You can finance commercial property differently and have the returns actually flow back to the community instead of just, top 10%. So we structured it as Bitcoin maxis, as Bitcoiners. And it's kind of like similar to, MicroStrategy right now is selling shares, buying Bitcoin, holding it in treasury. If you sell shares of a REIT, buy a property, let's say a property is 100K, and you also buy 100K in Bitcoin, right? So the REIT, the community, holds the property and an equal amount of Bitcoin in its portfolio, in collateral. So you have that is your those are your assets. And instead of having to charge, 10, 12% interest, like here with the bank, for example, or needing a down payment, you can actually just have a user, person, someone that wants to buy a house, be able to just buy equity and build equity over time in that property by just paying their what would be monthly rent or a monthly mortgage. Instead, they just, in a rent to own model, just buy equity in that property over time. So you build wealth. And if you want to, because on average, if you're buying like a studio, you're, early on, you buy a studio apartment. Maybe later on, after 10 years, you buy a 2 or 3 bedroom house. You want to build a family. So you're not staying there for that 20 or 30-year mortgage anyway. And you can take the wealth that you've built and actually just port it into another property, into the ecosystem, right? So we're creating a community way for people to own and finance property. And if you look at commercial property, for example, we have one that we're piloting here in Suriname. It's right directly next to the shore base. The income from that property, from corporations that rent, space in that building, that just gets divided to the community as well. So it's divided to the shareholders of the REIT too. So you create actual sources of income. But I do think that in time, as this grows and spreads, that it will also change how you value real estate, right? Because now it won't, like, the incentive model is changed completely. It's not real estate needs to appreciate, like, or it gets inflated over time. The value will go back to its utility, right? Because now you're actually just bringing it back to its natural use, where, like our grandparents, right? It was just a home, and you could buy it with a couple of months of salary. That is where it needs to go back to. And I think by adding Bitcoin to the mix, making it easier for people to just acquire it and actually use it as a home, and not, need to be in debt and be a debt slave for the entire life, that they can actually go back to its utility value. So I'm very excited to see how that evolves over time.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah, and Noster is we're building it as a Noster client, because we do think that this is the infrastructure for free internet, as internet was supposed to be in the 1990s, but turned out to be this centralized, big tech controlled and environment, instead of actual free and open internet. So I think with Bitcoin being the payment layer, and Nostr being a communications layer, I do think this is the foundation for that dream that we had in the 90s of actually having free and open internet. And if we build our economies on it, if we build our how you own a house and everything on these new standards, that's going to change the dynamics of everything and disrupt big tech and old financial systems. And I do think this is where Bitcoin wins. Like, this is the transition that we've been waiting for.
Power to the people, literally. So yeah, hashtag hyper-nostrification, hashtag hyper-Bitcoinization. Maya, it has been an absolute pleasure having you on the show, and we wish you all the best of luck in the upcoming elections and whatnot. And yeah, keep on keeping on. Keep fighting the good fight. Vive la résistance. Yeah.
Yes.
Anywhere else you'd like to direct our viewers and listeners to? Where can they find you? Where can they support your campaign? All of this.
Well, they can find me on Nostr. I'm on Nostr more than I'm on Twitter. They can find me on or Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. You can find me on that platform as well. And I'd like to direct them to the Bitcoin Suriname Geyser Fund, the Circular Economy, the Telegram group, and Nova Stars. Nova Stars, it's an amazing project. Just check that one out on Geyser as well. And if you want to reach me, just DM on X. That just can tend to get a bit busy, but in the Telegram group, I'm pretty active there, because I'm Telegram has been my life Bitcoin on Telegram has been my life for, I don't know, a decade now, or over a decade now. So you can usually find me there as well.
Awesome. We'll include all the relevant links in the description. And as an aside, we would love to have the video and the audio directly hosted on Nostr. Still haven't figured that out yet, but all the links and everything will be posted on Nostr, so you'll be able to get that there. Anyway, Maya, this has been fantastic, and good luck with the campaign. Hopefully, we'll be in touch, between now and then. But best of luck until then. And well, this has been the Bitcoin Infinity Show. Thank you very much for listening.